Good evening, everyone. We are having the Urban Affairs Committee meeting this evening. It will be held virtually with councilors attending in person, and I don't believe we have any remotely. Council Perlman is with us remotely. This meeting will be televised. No public attendance will be permitted. You can view the meeting using the link under the Meeting Videos tab on the city website at future times. We have two items on our agenda this evening. The first one is order number 20-100-8062, an application for a special permit by Local Roots New England Incorporated to operate an adult use marijuana retail dispensary, 910 Boston Post Road East, Suite 100. And we also have continued review of order number 20-100-7995B, an application for a special permit by WP Marlborough, Massachusetts, owner LLC, 339 Boston Post Road East, to construct a multifamily dwelling residential project, McGee Farm. All of the committee members are present in the chamber, so we do not need to do roll call this evening. Please, if there are counselors, you won't hear it, but let me know if there are other counselors that come into the meeting. We will begin.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Oram, is that your voice I hear?
Yes, just announcing myself. It's being at the meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Oram. All right, we will start with Local Roots. I believe we have Mr. Olstein from Local Roots along with their Director of Security, Mr. Fukire. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. So I think you have a PowerPoint. If you want to unmute yourselves, you can begin, please.
Sure. We did submit a PowerPoint. I'm not sure how we see it or refer to it. Is that going to get put up on the screen, or how do we handle that? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. The city clerk is loading the PowerPoint.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So once again, my name is Rick Olstein. I'm one of the owners of the Local Roots, the applicant, as well as one of the owners at 910 Boston Post Road, which is the proposed location. With me here tonight is Ron LaCour, our Director of Security. I know that at this point, most of the council is familiar with the project, so I don't know if you would like me to do any sort of a presentation, or you would just like to, ask questions. So I'm not quite sure how you'd like to handle it. I'm happy to run through the PowerPoint if you'd like, but I know your time is valuable. So what's your preference?
I think because there was some confusion maybe at the public hearing on the floor plan, if you want to show what you have, we can have the screen show first the site plan, which I think is the same, then the floor plan, and I wouldn't mind having a couple of the photos that you have submitted just so that we are all aware of the surrounding the building and exactly where this is going in context with everything else that's at the building.
Sure. So if we could move to the next slide, that'd be great. And this is just sort of reintroducing ourselves, so we can go right to the next one. So this is the site plan that we've prepared. As I think you're aware, we're at 910 Boston Post Road East, on the westbound side of the road, essentially across the street from the Raytheon site. We do have a dedicated traffic light that controls traffic movements in and out of our site. You can see our building and our parking. We have abundant off-site parking available at the property, and the dispensary location is on I'm just trying to see where the north arrow is on the west side of the building. The dispensary location itself will stand alone. It will have its own dedicated both front and rear entryways, so it will not share any common area with the balance of the building. The rest of the building are commercial office suites. So is there any further questions about the site plan, or should we move to the floor plan?
Why don't you go to the floor plan? We go through all the slides, then we can ask questions.
Sure. So this is the floor plan. The dispensary will be Suite 100, as shown on the plan here. I can walk you through the floor plan and how it lays out if you'd like, or you know, I don't know how well you can see it on the screen, whether it needs to be blown up. So do you want me to walk through the floor plan itself, or is the visual sufficient?
Why don't you just do a quick walkthrough? I know we have a copy of this. It's kind of tiny and far away, but I think we can all follow on our own copies that we were given.
Sure. So we can start with the entrance vestibule. So you can see where it says awning, and then you'll see there are two doors that access the space. The door to the left, as you're looking at the plan, will be the door in. That'll enter into a secure vestibule area. Immediately to the left of that, you'll see our security room, where we'll have a security guard sitting behind a secure window. He'll also have all the security monitors and alarm monitors for the entire space. So the entire premises, inside and outside, is covered by cameras, which the security guard will be able to view at all times. Customers will have their identification checked at that point, and then they'll be allowed access through the next secure door, which is the one that's labeled in, that will allow them into the dispensary. As they enter the dispensary, you'll see in front of you the sales counter with our point of sale stations. So they'll approach the counter and transact their business. For those people that would like to spend a little time, maybe educating themselves about our menu, about our products, we have set up an area to the right of the vestibule to give people time to sit down, maybe go through the menu, read some of the educational materials that we provide, and then once people have completed their transactions, they exit the space through the door that's marked out. You'll notice that the wall in the vestibule is a half wall, so there's full visibility through the entire vestibule, but this allows us to just segregate the traffic so that we can easily control people coming in, people going out, and we don't have any sort of confusion if we've got people trying to come in and out at the same time, because we want to make sure we keep very good control over that point of access. And then the other spaces shown in the floor plan are not available to the public. You'll notice that behind the sales counter, we have a manager's office, and we have a packaging and receiving area, and then we have a secure vault. The vault is where all of our cash and product will be stored. It is fully reinforced and alarm controlled. And then you'll also notice that we have a rear entrance that we will use to accept deliveries and cash transport. So that way there will be no sort of mixing or interacting of the public access and the delivery and transport that will need to take place. And then in addition to that, we have a break room and a restroom. So that's pretty much how the space lays out. And then if we want to move to the pictures, this shows the view of our building. This is looking back to the east. As you would approach the traffic light from this position, you would have a left-hand lane available for you to make a left-hand turn. And our dispensary is really over to the left of this picture. You can kind of barely see a white sign over a sort of a bush. That will be our front door. And then if we can move to the next slide. So this shows what will be our storefront. Where that white sign is now is where that awning and those in and out doors will be located. And once again, this elevation is not the side of the building that faces Route 20. This is the side of the building that faces the private drive that's accessed off from the street light. And then if we can move to the next picture. This depicts the rear parking area that I was describing. The area sort of over to the right-hand side, it has a kind of like a rectangular area that would, arguably be for a sign is where that rear door is. As you may or may not be able to tell in this picture, the door and the building is actually a little bit raised up over the existing grade. So we do have a planter and a retaining wall there, which has added some additional security because there isn't sort of the opportunity for somebody to try and, crash through a wall. So this is where we'll conduct all our shipping receiving activities. And that is the pictures that we have. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. I believe, Councilor Doucette, you had your hand up.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions. Overall, I think this is well thought out, and I know the building pretty well. I live probably about half a mile from it, so I know that back in the day, alternate communications used to be in that one of the original internet service providers of the area. But a couple of questions. First is, which entrance are the employees going to be using? Will they be using the main entrance in the front or the rear entrance?
Ron, I'll let you answer that, please.
The employees will be entering through the rear entrance, the same entrance as the deliveries will be received.
Okay.
All access control doors in the back.
Okay. So employees basically have common access cards, secure access logs, all that fun stuff, right? And it's under camera control? For the
Yes, all the doors that Rick referred to as secure doors are all access control doors.
Yeah.
So the employees will be able to fob in from the rear of the building and the front of the building, and then there's some additional access control doors throughout the interior of the...
Okay. And the employees will be parking in the back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other questions I have, it looks like you do have a bathroom, handicap access bathroom in the suite. Is that available to the public?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay. And it's one bathroom, so that's it, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's okay. Also, final question as far as the, do you do your own growing, or are you planning to be purchasing off market, or a combination of the two?
Predominantly our own. We will certainly buy some wholesale products, but we currently have a cultivation facility that is up and operating in the town of Barry, Mass. And then we have a cultivation and manufacturing facility where we're just completing construction in Framingham, Mass. So that will largely provide all the product that we need. But that being said, we certainly will wholesale some other products just to, offer some variety to our customers.
Oh, sure, sure. How many other dispensaries do you have now?
We have one other dispensary in the city of Fitchburg that has been up and operating since the spring. And then we have a third dispensary location in the town of Sturbridge, which is currently under construction, and we expect to open for business in the first quarter of 2021. So that will give us the 3 dispensaries, assuming that we're successful in this location, that we're allowed to have in the state.
Okay. And when do you see this one opening up if we're given the permit?
I'm always hesitant to predict something that is in a lot of ways out of our control, but we will be prepared to begin construction immediately. Construction and development is one of the businesses that myself and my business partner have owned and operated and actually headquartered in Marlborough for over 20 years. So we do have our own construction resources. We'll get to work right away, and in terms of opening, we'll somewhat be beholden to working with the city of Marlborough, but more importantly with the State Cannabis Control Commission and how quickly they process applications, perform inspections. But our goal would be to be open. We would hope for first quarter of 2021, but certainly by the second quarter of 2021.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm all set.
Any other questions? I'm going to go over on this side because I saw him raise his hand and he'll yell at me if I don't. Councilor Landers.
Well, I just want to make sure you can go left as well as right. Madam Chair, just a couple of quick ones. I noticed you mentioned that the entranceway in and out is only a half wall separating there. Is there any reason there's not a full plexi glass between those coming in and those that are leaving?
Well, we wanted to maintain visibility for the security staff who are in the security office through the entire vestibule. Plexiglass, I suppose, would maintain that visibility, but I'm not sure what it would accomplish. There's no reason that I guess we could think of why we would put up plexiglass.
Maybe I was just, exaggerating a little bit. There'd be some type of transfer between those coming in and those going out. I'm not sure. I've only visited one of these places once, so I'm not sure. But that's something, you can look into. Now, any thoughts of doing any resurfacing of your parking lot? Any, especially the entrance part?
Yes, we will certainly be improving the parking lot and the landscaping at the property as part of the work.
Yeah, I hate to bring up parking. This is one of the few projects that we've worked on, Madam Chair. There seems to be plenty of parking. I've driven around there a couple of times, and there's parking in front, there's parking on the side, there's parking in back. And then, of course, the biggest thing you have going for is the traffic light on Route 20. Well, Madam Chair, that's really the only questions I have.
Thank you. Councilor Wagner?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm trying to understand the entry, again, if you just help me understand this. So you walk into this first vestibule, is that first, once you're in the vestibule, is that next door locked?
Yes.
Because it looks like then you leave that door and you're in the area, but you have to take a turn to go into the security area where you get your ID checked?
No, that's not the way it works. So you walk in, the door that you see into the secure area is for the security staff only. So that there's no public access into that room. So that's where the security staff will sit. That's where all our alarms and monitors are. So what will happen is when someone from the public walks in, there's a window between the security room and the entrance vestibule. They'll stop at that window. They'll present their identification. Security staff will check it. If it's legitimate, then they will buzz them through the second door, which will give them access into the sales floor area.
All right, because am I just missing? It looks very clearly like there's a door, it says in, and it enters right into the main area. So is that incorrect, or is that just, I'm not understanding it? It says in, so it looks like it's right into the
wouldn't want to
retail
suggest
area.
that, but maybe I can explain it a better way. So the door that you see going into the security room is a secure door that is for security employees only. You'll need a key fob to get through that door, and there's no public access into that space. The public will start at the area where it says awning. They will come in the front door, so that will allow them into the entrance vestibule. When in the entrance vestibule, they'll be looking in front of them at a door that will be locked.
Okay.
They will stop at the security window,
Okay.
present their identification,
Okay.
and then if their identification is acceptable, then the security guard will allow them to go through that door that's marked in, and then at that point, they'll be on the sales floor.
I got it. Sorry, thank you. I thought they were going into that security vestibule. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. All
Yeah,
set.
no problem.
All right, any questions from anybody else in the chambers? Anybody on the screen? No? All right, if I don't hear any, I'm going to quickly go through the comments that we received from the managers, just so that they are part of the public record. First, we received from Jeffrey Cook, the building commissioner. I recently toured the site at 910 Boston Post Road East, Suite 100, local routes with Chief Georgie and Chief Green. At this time, I have no additional comments or concerns. John Garside from the Board of Health states that the applicant should be advised that in accordance with draft special permit page 5, section E2, compliance with applicable laws, a permit for the operation of a marijuana retail facility is required from the Marlborough Board of Health. This permit should be applied for after all local and state approvals have been granted. Priscilla Ryder, Conservation and Sustainability Officer, also has no comments as they are using an existing building. Kevin Breen, fire chief. I recently visited the site with Chief Georgie and Commissioner Cook. We reviewed the layout and operational plans. The fire department, along with the building department, has weighed in with the applicant in terms of fire alarm and emergency lighting requirements. I have no outstanding comments at this time. And from David Georgie, Chief of Police, I too have visited the local routes location and have discussed security and traffic concerns. I do not have any issues with the design and location of the building. I believe the presence of the traffic light immediately in front of the establishment can mitigate the impact of the additional vehicles in the parking lot and the roadways. In addition, we discussed security for the location and the presence of separate delivery entrance and vestibule areas for deliveries is beneficial to the overall security of the business. Outside of this, the police department does not have any other comments on the location. And from Tom DePercio, the city engineer, I have no outstanding issues or comments on this application. So you all have a copy of the draft notice of a decision grant of special permit, and we can begin going through this evening and seeing if there are any changes, corrections that we need to make. Page 1 starts with the finding of facts, which gives the description of the business and its location. On page 2, number 11, I do have one correction that I noticed that I believe the solicitor also caught. The date of the public hearing was actually September 14th, not Monday, August 27th, 2018. So, Rick, I think if you are keeping track of the changes that will be made, if you can then send an updated copy of this back to the city council, we can check it all and make sure that it's good to go. I would suggest in number 13, I know I had a conversation with Karen Bully, our office staff. Number 12 talks about the applicant who spoke, and then at the public hearing is opened with public and speaking in favor. The applicant always speaks first. I would prefer the use of no members of the public rather than zero.
Yep.
And instead of 0 members of the public spoke in opposition, I would suggest an email from 2 residents dated August 3rd, 2020 was read into the record as being opposed.
Okay, I got that. I didn't hear your first request.
Change 0 to no. No members of the public spoke in favor.
Okay, so this is no.
I don't know if anybody else had anything that they caught or suggesting as changes. All right, so then we get to the following actions. These are really just going through all the things that they need to be doing. We get to number D, which talks about in accordance with, we are granting it, and then this is a whole list of things that pretty much follow all of the other permits that we've given and are referencing items from both the Cannabis Commission and our own code. In number 1, social, economic, and community needs which are served by the proposal. I believe that the error for the date and an error in this one were because you used VD Natural's application for their marijuana. So you need to strike the word patients and in the findings. The use will provide a safe and convenient location for adults. You will have no patients.
Correct.
And then number 2 is talking about the traffic flow. I'm going to go through these quickly, but if anybody does have issues, please raise your hand. I'll try to make sure. If not, we'll go back through. Number 3 is adequacy of utilities and public services. Number 4 is the neighborhood character and social structure. Number 5 is impacts on the natural environment. Number 6 is potential fiscal impact. Number 7 is hours of operation. Number 8 is requiring that contact information be provided to the chief Police, the Building Commissioner, and the Special Permit Granting Authority, which would be the City Council. Number 9 is requiring payment of a community impact fee, and the packet that we all received when they applied has the host community agreement and discusses a lot of that aspect. Number 10 is requiring a submission to the Special Permit Granting Authority of the same annual reports that are provided to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Public Health and the Cannabis Control Commission. Number 11, requiring regular inspections by the city officials and their agents and access to the same records that are sent to those same bodies as the previous item. Number 12 is requiring employees to undergo a criminal background check. Number 13, requiring surveillance cameras capable of 24-hour video recording, archiving recordings, and ability to immediately produce images in, on, around, or at the premises. Number 14 is prohibiting the sale of any materials or items unrelated to the purposes of registration by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Public Health or Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission. And number 15 is the ability of the business to, and there's a whole list of things that they are
Madam,
required.
I want to go back to 14 for a minute.
Produce it.
Thank you very much. Sorry for not catching you ahead of time, Councilor Roby. But the last sentence, which is including without limitation to tobacco products, clove, cigarettes, or e-cigarettes. The problem is that e-cigarettes, unless you're specifically referring to tobacco, can now refer to vape cartridges, which can have, you know, cannabis-derived material in them. So we may want to just do a little word change there to make it clear. I understand this is changing the boilerplate, but think of this maybe going forward from here. So without limitation, tobacco products such as clove cigarettes or e-cigarettes. So it still remains, you know, you can't sell tobacco here or tobacco products, but you could be still selling cannabis products that are similar to tobacco products, but just don't have tobacco in them. You see what I'm saying?
Madam Chair,
Councilor Oram?
if I may help on, yes, if I may help, I work in the field of tobacco control as well as public health. We describe tobacco products and others as nicotine delivery items. So if that can help with the discussion, I offer that to the group.
And it's also my understanding that the very first part of this is you can't, prohibiting the sale unrelated to the purposes of registration. So their purpose of registration is to sell cannabis-related things. So I don't know if there are cannabis e-cigarettes or not. I thought they were all banned by the state. But it's the non-cannabis-related products that they can't sell. So a regular e-cigarette
So
would
as long
not
as these
be
materials are being registered with the Cannabis Control Commission, then it's allowed. If it's not registered
Correct.
within, okay, I'm fine with that then. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. So we're back to 15. 16, signs and signage. This simply says the signage shown on the plans is appropriate for the use. Looking at the plans that we have, it doesn't really talk about signs, and I know this was an issue when we did a prior permit, and we put in language that was in VD Natural special permit, which reads, and I can make sure that you have this language, Rick, prior to seeking an initial sign permit from the city, the applicant, its successors, and/or assigns shall submit to the city council renderings of its proposed signage, which shall comply with the city sign ordinance.
We're fine with that.
Everybody else okay with that? Number 17 is the names of the businesses, business logos, and symbols subject to state and federal law and regulations. And again, this finding says the names of the business logos and symbols associated with the use as provided in the application and shown on the plans are appropriate for the use. And again, to me, I didn't really see anything on the plans that tells me what I would want to know. So again, I would suggest we use language from the VD Natural Special Permit, which read, Prior to commencing operations, the applicant, its successors, and/or assigns shall submit to the city council its business name, logos, and symbols, all of which shall comply with state and federal law and regulations.
And we can get that proposed language from you, because I can't write that fast.
Yes, I can get it to you.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody
Fine,
else?
fine.
All right, now we're going to get to Section E, which pursuant to the authority under Mass General laws, the Marlborough City Council hereby approves grants the applicant with the following conditions. So number 1 is construction with applicable laws. Number 2 is compliance with applicable laws. Number 3 is site plan review, which I believe you have started that process. Number 4 is incorporation of submissions, so anything that's been submitted or will be submitted as part of the record. Number 5, compliance with state requirements. On this one, I would suggest one minor change in number 6C, talking about security. You have, as shown on the plans, that you, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I have the actual language. I think all it had was as shown on the plans. I would ask that that get changed to, as shown on the plans, the use shall have opaque exterior windows, so that it's very clearly spelled out in the document. I know in the plans, it's hard to see it, that the plans do have a statement that you're using opaque windows, but it doesn't hurt to.
That's fine, but I wasn't clear on the language that you.
As shown on the plans,
Yeah?
the use shall have opaque exterior windows.
But it does say that, right?
Well, but it's hard to see it on the plans.
No, but doesn't that say that right here in C? So do you
That's
want us
exactly
to
what
change
C
things?
is.
I just want it more clearly spelled out.
The issue, Rick, is that the plans, it's hard to read that same language on the plan. So even though it's in the special permit, you just want to make sure the plans reflect that.
Okay, sure. So we don't need to change the decision here, we just need to make sure it's more clearly labeled on the plans.
That would do it.
No, I think both the language and the plans. So it's because people will look at this special permit well before they'll look at the plans.
I'm not debating the point, I'm just not understanding what you want C to actually say. Do you want me to just get as shown on the plans out of there and just say the use shall have opaque exterior windows so that it's just a definitive statement?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, it says that now in the decision.
Yeah,
It says it right now. It says, as shown on the plans, the use shall have opaque exterior windows. That's on
Oh,
this.
you know what, I guess I'm not understanding my own little notes. Maybe I was suggesting deleting the part that says as shown on the plans, so that.
Yeah, that's what I just suggested. So that's what we'll do. That way it's just a definitive statement. The use
it
shall have
just says
opaque
the
exterior
use.
windows.
got it.
Shall have opaque exterior windows.
That's all.
All right, we are at number 7, processing and odors. Number 8 are your hours, which you are asking Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Number 9 is contact information. Number 10 are annual reports. Number 11, inspections and records. Number 12 is background checks. Number 13 is unrelated materials. And then you have as number 14, a recording of decision. I would ask the voting members to think about whether we want to add in the police detail that is in the other 2 special permits that we have, which stated the applicant, its successors and/or assigns shall employ a City of Marlborough police detail at the site during all operating hours for the first 60.
Counselor Roby?
Yes?
Because this location is really, has a light where the other ones do not, I really don't think we need a police detail because of the light.
I guess I would argue that the one on Route 20 West is also at a light, and we put this language in that permit, which is why I'm thinking that it's only fair that it also be in this one. Counselor Austin, you have a comment?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would just, again, I'm okay with the 60-day, but as long as we have the caveat, I think as we're getting more and more comfortable with the operations of these facilities, the chief of police can come in before the 60 days and say, hey, we've been working with the applicant, there's been no issues, and he can inform the council that they don't have to do that anymore. As long as it's worded that way, I think it's basically been unfair to wait the 60 days, because we found, starting with garden remedies, there have been no issues.
So maybe we could change the garden remedies and the other one, the language stated at the end of the 60-day period, if the chief determines, we could add in there within the 60-day period,
Yeah.
if the chief, do you want me to read the whole language, Rick, so you are aware of what it says, or are you familiar with it?
No, I believe it was in the Verdi special permit, so I can probably find it from there.
Okay, so if we just, instead of it saying at the end of the 60-day period, just change it to within the 60-day period, if the chief of police determines in a letter with the city council that the detail is still necessary. How about if it says is unnecessary?
Yes.
Rather than still necessary?
Madam Chair.
Councilor Landers?
I think it's good that we start with a police officer. You know, it's something, you start with one, and then, I don't care whether it's 10, 20, or 30 days, the chief decides if we can pull back, because trying to add one after you open up is sometimes a little tough. I had one other question. Garden remedies, were they, did I dream this, that they were looking to expand their hours?
Yes, we will have a public hearing next month on their request to expand their hours.
Yeah, I figured they were trying to add an hour, I believe.
Till 10 o'clock.
I can tell you, they want to go, so currently, the hours are as stated in item number 8, 10 to 8. They want to make that 9 to 10, Monday through Friday, and then Sunday, instead of 10 to 5, it would be 10 to 8. But the council hasn't determined
Right.
if that's something they want to do yet.
Yeah.
So, I'll let the chair decide, but we're going with what's been approved so far, and if Local Roots wants to come back and change it, assuming the council goes that way.
That's probably what would happen.
Yep.
I hate to show my hand, but I'm more comfortable with the expanded hours here than, at the garden remedies here. But I just thought it probably will come up, but let it stand as it is, and then we can change it if it happens. Okay, Madam Chair, I'm all set.
Thank you. And I would guess the applicant probably followed the language of the other permits. The hours, I believe, are identical on all of them. So if we amend one, there may be a desire to amend others, and it will be up to the council to decide based on their location. All right, I think we have gone through all of this. Is the council comfortable enough, the Urban Affairs members comfortable enough with the changes and know what they are, that we don't need to have another meeting, or do you want to have them come back quickly at our meeting next week to go over the changes?
I'd be ready, Madam Chair, to move on it because the changes were minute.
I agree.
All right, so they can get us a changed copy, then we could, let's see, at our next city council, we could refer this to legal to be put in proper form, and then be able to vote on it at the following meeting. Does that sound okay with the applicant?
Yeah, that sounds great. We appreciate everybody being so accommodating. Thank you.
Okay, so first I need a motion from someone on the committee.
Motion to send to the legal department to put in proper legal form, is that the appropriate?
At this point, we just need to vote first, and then we'll, the fact that there would be a request for a suspension would be
A vote
secondary.
to approve, then?
As amended.
Amended.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the special permit as amended. Is there discussion? Seeing none from in chambers and none from on the remote, I will ask for a vote. So all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means no one is opposed. So I do not really need a vote of the committee, but I will ask for a suspension at the next city council meeting when this is reported out, that we vote at that meeting to refer this for, to be put in proper legal form. Unless you all would really like a vote, but I think it's a procedural thing. Anybody can ask for anything to be added to the agenda. So I don't think we really need a vote. All right? Everybody okay with that?
Well said.
All right, with that then, applicants for local routes, thank you very much for your time, and you can certainly watch the next meeting, or if nothing else, be aware that there would be 2 meetings before we take a vote of the full council. So I will be in touch to make sure you have the language that you need, Rick, to then get the amended permit back to us, so we have the document, which would then...
Okay. Once again, we'd like to thank you all for your help and cooperation. You guys have been great to work with.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to just do a couple-minute recess so we can give people time to leave this meeting and get people that are for the second part of this on wake up.
Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thank you all very much.
I'm going to call the Urban Affairs Committee back from our brief recess. We have the second part of our meeting, people on, ready to go with the continuing the discussion of Walcott Heritage Farms. Mr. Falk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I saw the heads. Thank you very much. So we're here tonight, as we mentioned last time, to get into the details of our transportation and site access work. Our traffic engineer, Giles Ham of Vanessa & Associates, will be doing most of the presenting tonight. But before I turn things over to him, I just want to mention a few quick points. First, thank you for the great feedback during last week's meeting. We listened very closely, and we're working on changes to the project to address concerns and make the project work. This is taking us some time, so we may need to push back our next meeting a bit so that we have time and the city has time to review our work. Second, one key item you'll see in Giles' presentation is a comparison of the transportation impacts of our project versus a similarly sized commercial project. You'll see that our project compares favorably to this alternative use, which would have a greater traffic impact. And I urge you to keep that comparison in mind because something is going to be developed at this site. The McGee family cared for the property for years, and the city has benefited from having this open land along Route 20. But that is changing. The family's ready to move on, and the use of the property is going to change. Our proposal is one that gives City Council a chance to work with a solid team and a proponent that will own and operate the property and has a good track record of quality projects. The alternatives for this site include a number of by right uses that would not come before the City Council. Someone looking to do up to a 75,000 square foot strip mall, offices, laundromats, outdoor storage, that could pop up here with just site plan approval. Many of those uses would have a greater traffic impact. Those types of uses would not require special permits. The City Council would have no role, and the city would have a much less leeway to shape the project. By right commercial uses would also have little incentive to improve or preserve the green space in the back. So many of the environmental attributes of our proposal would not carry forward with a commercial use. So again, I urge you to look not just at our transportation and access issues, but consider that some other use will go on this site. You're currently dealing with a use that you know, and an applicant that wants to work with you and produce something that's good for the area and good for the whole city. So with that, I'll turn things over to Giles. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Giles Heeman, I'm a partner with Vanessa and Associates. Now, just a little point of order. I cannot see the display on my computer. I can deal with that, but I'm assuming everybody can see. I think some of our team members might not have the display as well, but I presume everybody in the committee can see what we're talking to. Okay, so we've conducted a very detailed transportation study for the proposed residential development off Route 20. And we've conducted the study to industry and state standards. It's pretty much a typical traffic study. And now I can see that. Great, thank you. In conducting our study, we've been to the site on several occasions. We've done traffic counts in the area. We've done safety studies, which includes looking at speeds along the corridor, looking at 5 years of accident data along the corridor, and looked at sight distance to make sure the driveway sight distance are adequate and it's a safe design. We've estimated traffic to be generated by the project. We've conducted an operational analysis of the roadway, and we've made a series of recommendations to mitigate these impacts. We've been in contact with the city engineer and Mass DOT to review the project and access. So next slide, please, which I can't see. I think as you're aware, the project includes 188 residential units on Route 20. Our westerlymost driveway is an egress only. You can only exit at that driveway, and that was a change we made at the suggestion of the city. The main driveway is a two-way driveway opposite Village Drive, and we'll get into that in more detail later. And there's an easterly small parking lot driveway, which will get little use, but it's really an overflow parking lot, which really won't get much use at all. Next slide, please. So this is really the Mass DOT improvement slide. And at last week's meeting, one of the committee members noted that Route 20, and to quote, too congested the way it is built. And we actually agree with that statement. But starting back in 2016, a project between the City of Marlborough, Mass DOT and their consultant, and the MPO was initiated, so about 4 years ago. The study objective includes safety and mobility evaluations, the development of multimodal solutions along the corridor, and as a result is the plan that's in front of you. And this is very important because the roadway you see out there today will be fixed and will be widened and will be improved and will be safer. So that's very important. So as shown on this plan, there's the road would be widened and there'll be a center turn lane. We call it a center two-way turn lane. So that allows, if you're turning into a development or a driveway, that you can sit in the middle of the road and not be blocking east or westbound traffic. So it's a much safer condition that exists today. And as you know today, when you're out in the corridor, it's difficult to make those turns when there's cars behind you. This plan allows for safety and capacity improvements, improves the overall safety of the corridor, and as a result, there'll be a significant reduction of accidents in this area. You'll also see on this plan there are bicycle lanes on both sides of Route 20, and there's sidewalks also on both sides of Route 20. So this plan is a widening of the roadway, adds new capacity, and this plan allows for additional development along the corridor with this new plan. The project construction is anticipated to commence in May of 2021, and again represents a significant safety and capacity improvement. And this is a collaborative effort of all the project shareholders that were involved in the initial planning studies and the design studies. And representatives of the city were also part of this lengthy review process. So next slide, please. This is just a simple cross-section of the roadway to help you better understand what I just went over with you. So really just going from left to right on this plan, you have a sidewalk and you have a bicycle lane, then you have a westbound travel lane, a center turn lane, an eastbound travel lane, a bicycle lane, and a sidewalk. So that is the proposed plan. I think it's simple to understand with this plan. And again, it's a wider roadway. It's been widened to accommodate these lane configurations. So next slide. This is just a simple map, a study map of what roadways we looked at, an intersection we looked at along Route 20. So from the left, we looked at Concord Road to the west. We looked at Village Drive in the central location, again, opposite our site. And then we also looked at Wilson Street and Farm Road. So at these locations, on Thursday, June 13th, 2019, we conducted traffic counts at these locations. We're actually out there counting cars from 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening, and really get an idea of every turning movement at these driveways and establish a peak hour condition. So next slide. This is really just a graphical representation of the area intersections, and I know you can't see the volumes in terms of the smaller volumes on the left, but a couple points here. As traffic engineers, we look at the highest hour, the highest commuter hour in the morning and the highest commuter hour in the evening. So the weekday morning peak hour is 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and the afternoon peak hour is 4:45 to 5:45 p.m. So those are where the highest volumes occurred, and is a basis for our study. To give you a sense of some of the volumes that are out there, Route 20 is a busy corridor. There's 24,000 cars per day on this roadway at any point within the study area. The morning peak hour is about 1,521 cars, and the evening peak hour is greater at 1,858 cars. So that just gives you a level of the volumes that are out there. I would note the counts at Village Drive, which is opposite our driveway. There was between 13 and 17 vehicles turning in and out of Village Drive during these 1 hour periods. Next slide, please. So how much traffic does 188 apartment units generate? So we have a document that's called the Trip Generation Manual, and it tells us how much traffic land uses generate, either by square footage or by unit. And in this case, the 188 unit generates weekday daily about 1,034 cars on a daily basis, and that would be 517 cars in and 517 cars out over the course of the day. During the morning peak hour, there's 68 vehicle trips with 18 cars going in and 50 cars going out. And in the afternoon peak hour, there would be 84 vehicle trips, which is 51 cars in and 33 out. And I get this question a lot, is what happens is, even though there's about 376 parking spaces on this site, a lot of people will travel to work before the peak hours or come home at night, and so they're not counted in the 1 hour volumes. And so that's why the numbers they kind of look like they don't match up with the number of parking spaces. And quite frankly, some cars don't even leave the site over the course of a day. So that gives you kind of a level of the traffic volumes that would go in and out of this project. And also it would be less traffic than an allowed commercial use, which is really the next slide. So this slide just shows on the left column is the amount of traffic for the residential use. And as was indicated earlier, retail is an allowed use on this site by right. So the site engineers looked at this site, and they figured they could get about a 47,000 square foot retail building on this site. And when you look at the comparison, so the retail volumes are in the middle column there. And when you look at the comparison, so what do you see? On a daily basis, and it makes sense, retail would generate a lot more traffic than a residential project. And that's about 2,500, a little more than 2,500 cars a day would be more traffic in comparison to the residential use. It also makes sense when retail is not that busy in the morning that the retail would generate a little less traffic than the residential use in the morning. But the most critical hour out there is the afternoon peak hour, where the retail would generate about 227 more cars an hour. And that's about 3.7 times greater than the residential use. So it's a significant amount of more traffic that would be on this site for a residential use. Next slide, please. This slide is just and you can't see the numbers. It's just a network of the volumes out there. My only real point on this one, in any direction with this development, there'll be no more than 30 cars added to any direction along the corridor, and that's about one vehicle every 2 minutes in any direction. So it's an increase in traffic. It certainly is, but it's certainly not a significant increase. The next slide, and again, I'm not seeing the slides on my screen. I'm assuming this one says Mass DOT Route 20 proposed site access.
You are correct.
Okay, good. We're still in sync. So, and I'm almost done. So this is our proposed new driveway location opposite Village Drive, and you can see it's superimposed with the Mass DOT improvements that'll be constructed starting next year. And our project is certainly compatible with these proposed improvements, and it fits quite nicely with the widening of the roadway and the safety improvements that are proposed by that project. So in working with the city engineer and his comments, and also some coordination with Mass DOT, we've located our driveway opposite Village Drive. And in general, I'll tell you that four-way intersections like this are better and safer than if they were slightly offset. When they're slightly offset, you can have conflicts with some of the turning movements. So we think, as per your city engineer's suggestion, this makes sense. It's a four-way intersection, and what happens here is the left turns can maneuver left turns into the site simultaneously, and they can also exit simultaneously. That's the way it's designed. You can see to the right of this plan is the Marlborough Square driveway and intersection, and you can see there Mass DOT has developed an exclusive turn lane to that development, and to the west here, as we show here, it's called a two-way left turn lane, so left turns can maneuver at any point along the corridor and get out of the through traffic way at any of the driveways that are on the corridor. And this is a typical design where you have multiple curb cuts along a corridor. Again, we reviewed this design with Mass DOT, and they've given us a general acceptance of the location. We really can't file for a permit until after a project receives local approvals, but we've talked to them about this project. Mass DOT agrees that this is a good location and a safe location, and we feel confident that a curb cut for this project will be issued upon our filing. And I think this is just really my last slide. We've made a series of recommendations for this project to make sure we have a safe project. We make sure the design is safe. So with the access, again, we have a driveway opposite Village Drive. Our pavement markings and our design and our signage will conform to Mass DOT standards. And again, we have adequate sight lines. We have 400 to 500 feet of viewing sight distance in each direction, which makes for a safe driveway design. In terms of travel demand management, we implement measures to help reduce the project impact and help promote alternative modes of transportation. So we'll post transit schedules in the area. There is one bus route that travels by this site. We'll promote carpooling. We'll post information on car sharing service like Uber or Lyft. Promote non-auto travel. We'll have bicycle racks on site, and we'll also have electric car charging stations on site. In terms of permitting, we did file a report with what's called the MEPA, the state MEPA process, and we got our certification within that filing in August, which means there's no further state review in terms of the MEPA process. As I alluded to earlier, we will be required to file a Mass DOT for permit, but we're very confident we will get the driveway approved as proposed. So that's kind of a little bit of a brief or lengthy summary, but overall, we're very confident that the project can be accommodated. There'll be not significant impacts for this project, and I think importantly is that the proposed improvements that are contemplated and will be constructed by Mass DOT will make the corridor safer, will allow for development along the corridor, and you will see a reduction in accidents that currently exist out there today. This is a good project. A lot of work went into it with the community and Mass DOT, the consultants. So with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Buckley, is there any? Sorry, Mr. Falk, is there anybody else who wants to speak or you're having speak?
No, that wraps up our formal presentation. We're happy to take questions and continue our dialogue with the committee.
Questions from Council Urban Affairs Committee members? Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So really just two questions / comments. First is on the map, let's see, it'll be page 2 when you show, hold on, trying to figure out which one it is. In any case, you have the further westbound entrance on page 2 for the development. That is only accessible from the eastbound traffic, is that right?
Can you repeat that again, please?
The far west entrance to your development, okay? Site driveway A, is that now only accessible from eastbound traffic?
The westernmost driveway is an exit only.
Is exit only or?
Yes, exit egress only.
And you can go east or west from that?
That's correct.
So the only way you can enter is through site driveway B?
The entering is through the centralized location opposite Village Drive.
Okay.
And we had made the change at the westerly drive as per comments from city staff.
Okay. Okay, the other, I noticed that on the Mass DOT Route 20 proposed site access slide, which is second to last, it does not show the auxiliary parking in that slide.
Yeah, that should be there.
Because, yeah, it would be like in the corner where your logo is actually, but aside from that.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, that should be on the plan, thank you.
Yeah, it would be nice to see that just in, I like this picture, but having that, you might have to move things, further up so you can show it, but it would make it clearer from my perspective where it would go in that zoom picture.
Yeah, and just so you know, that parking lot, which is relatively small, is really, that helps us meet the city requirements in terms of parking supply.
Yep.
based upon my experience and monitoring we've done at facilities, I really don't see anybody parking there, to be honest with you.
Right, yep. But it still would be worth seeing that on the graph.
I agree 100%.
Okay. I understand where the numbers are coming from. As far as, it's tough to argue with statistics sometimes. But I think that if you're, well, in our current pandemic, it's tough to say how much traffic is going to be. So let's talk about, let's say post-2024, according to the latest numbers coming from the State House. I'd just be concerned that if you're targeting towards professionals doing commuting, then I would expect the peak hours to be greater. In that case, it really does depend upon your clientele, and that may not be reflected in your statistics. People going to Raytheon or Boston Scientific or other places like that, if they want to live in this place, they're getting paid well, they're going to be working with normal business hours. But that's all I'm going to say at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, and that makes some sense. I would tell you that a lot of people do, go to work at 7 in the morning, so they're kind of pre-peak hour. I was in at 6:40 this morning. I get home late tonight, so I'm not going to have any cars of me in during the peak hour. But that's, we've done a lot of development, a lot of monitoring, and this makes sense to us.
Other questions? Councilor Landers.
I guess, Madam Chair, one of the concerns I have, all these left turns, coming out of your site, going west. Right now, I'm on Route 20 a lot, and I don't shop at TD North Bank. I never went to Papagino's. I don't go to Dunkin' Donuts. I don't go to DC Bank. And then further east, it's so hard pulling out of any of those places I just named to go west. And now here's a situation, and I don't want to mention that word traffic light yet, but here's a situation, in the beginning of the McGee property, I guess it's driveway A, we're letting people go out, make a left turn to go west. Problem. And I guess at the B, it's going to line up with the driveway from Village Drive. But here again, I keep on using that word traffic lights. I'm not sure if we'll ever see them or not. I thought we'd never see traffic lights at the entrance of the high school, but guess what? A couple of weeks ago, they went on. So I guess that's where a lot of your accidents happen, right around Route 20 East, because it's unbelievable how cars try to pull into Dunkin' Donuts and some of these other businesses that I mentioned. So we're adding to the potential of accidents. Now, this middle island, the middle lane, I always felt a little uneasy there. I always felt better if on Route 9 and some of these other roads that there was an island there. But I know you can't have an island here because you have 2 travel lanes, you have the bike lanes, you have the sidewalks and stuff like that. But you're showing cars on Route 20 going east now, pulling into Village Drive. Now, true, they must do that now. But if this project, McGee project wasn't coming along, would the state still have this design here, do you know?
Yeah, so...
To get into Village Drive?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So again, the project, the planning of this project started in 2016, so well before we came on board. And there's kind of a we'll call it two-phase with the development with the project. So first of all, there's kind of a planning study. Let's look at the accident data. Let's look at alternatives. Let's see what makes sense. Let's talk to the community. Let's have public meetings. And at that point, they come up with alternatives, and they come up with a design that they think makes sense. And then after they do that, they get into the specific design. And I have some of the accident diagrams that were within that initial planning study. There's a lot of rear end accidents, and when you think about it, if you're going to Dunkin' Donuts, you're taking a left from the through lane, and that's where you get those rear end accidents. So that's why they developed this 3-lane section, really to take those turning traffic movements out of the through lane. And when you look at the accident statistics, there's a lot. The big percentage is rear end. It's not turning. It's not turns. It's the rear end. So that'll be taken care of.
I see that all the time because
Yeah.
people wait, and then they get desperate. They go, and all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah. So what we're really doing is, so the corridor improvement has been determined and it's been designed. The design was probably done before we even started this process. So what we're doing is, in working with the city and the state, where did it make sense to have our driveway? And they wanted to make sure that our design and our plan is compatible with what the proposed improvements are out there. And we think we've done that. We think the corridor will be much safer based on the design that Mass DOT come up with, and it'll be safe for our project as well as Village Drive. It'll be safer for the people at Village Drive as well.
Do you need driveway A? If I had my other plans with me, I'd know where that originates. It must originate from a parking lot behind one of the buildings. Is that correct?
Well, I think a lot of times with developments like this, you want to have, for public safety reasons, you want to have two means of access and egress. So, and as we've gotten through the process, instead of having it be an in and out driveway, it's just an exit driveway. So that kind of reduces the conflicts at that point, but it makes sense to have two access.
Well, would it be better to have a fire lane? Now, Royal Crest, it's been on Hosmer Street since 1968, and they still only, it's a nice entrance too. It's an entrance with an island in the middle, entrance, exit, and leaving. So Royal Crest has got by with it these last 50 years. They do have a fire lane further north on Hosmer Street, but it's only used, they only open it when they're snow plowing, and other than that, it's always lost. So I'm not so sure if you're not just adding to the potential for it's unbelievable trying to pull out of any of those areas I mentioned and trying to go west. So I don't know if it's
Madam
worth,
Chair?
I don't know if it's worth having it. Look at it.
Mr. Landers, we do have City Engineer DePercio with us. If you'd like him to take a chair, he could explain maybe this discussion in site plan of the original driveways, why the request for two, why the request for changing the driveway, or
Oh,
are
that'd be
you
fine.
okay?
I think he's a great engineer and
Mr. DePercio, if you don't
he
mind.
knows his stuff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yeah, my position has been, since we first started looking at this project in site plan review, was that we know about the traffic conditions there, the left turns, like you mentioned. We need from the applicant a good analysis and justification for where the entrance and exit from this project should be. When we first saw the plans, it didn't have the Mass DOT improvements shown. So we needed those to be shown, and when they incorporated those, my comment was, it looks like, based on the locations, that there's going to be conflicts with people taking left turns into properties across the street and people trying to make left turns into this project. That was the comment, and more so just a general comment of we need to be sure that there's been a good, thorough analysis of where's the best place for the entrance and exit for this project. Should there be two or should there be one? And a real justification of that. I didn't make a recommendation that it be across from Village Drive. I may have mentioned that's one thing that I would like to see analyzed. They've moved it there, and I know Mass DOT did look at it. I'm not sure we've seen a good analysis of why that's the safest place for it yet. I mentioned in a comment about if this is going to be the location, the possibility of a traffic signal warrant analysis. And I know I'll say that the volumes from this project in Village Drive aren't going to meet the warrant for a traffic signal, but there's other data that you would collect in that analysis that I think would be helpful to answer a lot of the questions and some of the concerns that we've heard from residents and from some of the committee members, like measuring the actual gaps in the traffic and what is the delay going to be? What is it now at Village Drive trying to take a left or some of these other driveways? What's the delay that's experienced now? What are the delays that will be in this project? Is a pedestrian going to be able to cross from this project to some of the restaurants that are on the other side? Is there sufficient gaps in the traffic now so that pedestrians can safely cross? Those are some of the things in a signal warrant analysis that you'd look at. So that was really where I was coming from with that suggestion. And I guess my point now is just, I'm not sure we've seen, or I've seen yet, enough data to say this is the safest place and it's going to work. They've got queuing leaving the site for just a couple or a few cars to make a left. Is that sufficient based on the delays that they can model based on gap counts and gap measurements? And the left turns opposing each other from both driveways, is that going to work without conflict? And another suggestion I made, if this turns out to be the best location, does it make sense to have what is now a hatched center lane if you're headed west towards what would be this new intersection? Should that be a dedicated left turn lane into the project or not? Should it be a continuation of the two-way left turn lane, or should well, that's what I would like to see analyzed. Should that be a dedicated left turn lane? Would that interfere with cars taking the left out of Village Drive? So those are some of the things that I'd like a response from the applicants on now.
So, and this is Giles again. So we appreciate those comments, and I didn't mean to suggest that Tom had suggested the driveway be at that location. He did raise the concern about having driveways offset and having conflicting left turns. So the way to eliminate that concern is to make it a four-way intersection. We did provide to Mass DOT different alternative stripings in terms of, I don't want to get too technical, but just different striping alternatives. The one that we showed you this evening is the striping alternative that Mass DOT preferred. And just a couple other points, and just keep in mind that when you add a center turn lane like this, it adds capacity to the roadway. It's tough to really put a real number on it in terms of percent increase, but you are widening the roadway, by a third in terms of the width. But what you're doing is you're taking all of that stop traffic to turning that stops people in the corridor and getting them out of the way. So the throughput is much better without having the delays of those left turns. And in terms of, we talked about the left turns, how they help you turn into driveways, but also when you're exiting, say if you're exiting Village Driveway, now you can take a left, get in that center lane, and then merge going eastbound. So you kind of do it in two movements. I think people understand that's how you can make those turns, and that helps. So the turn lane helps people get out of the corridor and into the corridor in a much safer condition than they do today. So we'll continue to work with staff and answer questions, but it is a very well thought out plan. And I'll only comment on signal warrants. I think it was alluded to, there's just not enough volume here to warrant a traffic signal. And in terms of, it's kind of getting technical, these gap studies, we're trying to measure how much distance is between cars. Unfortunately, with COVID, we really can't get out there and do really any accurate measuring right now because the volumes are just different. But we do have counts from 2019 was the basis of our study.
And Mr. DePrisio, this is still in site plan, is that correct? So the final design is not set. And Mass DOT still needs to sign off. Did you have other questions?
No, I mean, it's concerning, but I think as time goes on, I just can't see it easily resolved. I must admit, the state's doing a pretty good job. I travel Route 44 down southeastern Massachusetts, and they've done a tremendous job doing over that Route 44. Some of it's divided, some not, with the markings on the street. It's amazing how they can set up these lanes. Originally, it just looked like a black parking lot, but as time went on and they started doing the markings, and the traffic does flow pretty well. But as far as the need for a traffic light, I noticed up in Northborough there, that shopping center, I forget the name of it, but it's several stores right in the Northborough, Shrewsbury line. If you come down the back driveway there, right across from that light, there is a development. I don't know how many units there are, but there is a traffic light there that lets the people that live in that complex, whatever it is, it's not gigantic, not Avalon or anything like that. So it seems like at times the state would allow a traffic light, you know, coming out, well, either McGee's property or the village there. There has to be some solution. And I know the volume is important and the number of accidents, and there used to be another criteria which I won't mention, but you know, before you put lights in. But that whole area is really concerning. Not only the flow of the traffic, but the safety of it. You know, God forbid you get someone living at McGee's property and they get a habit of going over that Shell gas station at night to get goodies. Boy, you're trying to cross 46 feet at night with no crosswalk. That's dangerous. And that's a tough stretch there. Okay, I think as time goes on, but Madam Chair, those are the concerns I think I have, and that's the concern that a lot of people along there have, and I think that's why we're getting, you know, comments, not just in Ward 1 and Ward 7 and Ward 2, you know, citywide. I'm through.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councilor Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm looking at this in a number of different ways, and I actually did go over to the villages on Tuesday morning to try to get a feel for the traffic. Now, given that this is COVID and there weren't even any school buses out, it still took a considerable amount of time trying to take a left. You're sitting at their exit, and cars come in clusters, so there'd be like 8 to 10 cars, and so I'd have to wait for a few of those, and most people were heading east. And by the time there was a break with cars heading east, then the next little group would come west. So it was a good 10 minutes just sitting there waiting to get out. And have had a number of phone calls that tell me that. And, you know, people are really moving at a pretty fast clip there. So it's not like you're just, you know, trying to cross a intersection with cars going slow. So that concerns me. Looking at this picture, I get that there's models out there, but I'm coming at this from a practical point of view. This is the side of town I live on, and I'm just looking at this. So this improvement now is going to require that people have to watch for bikes coming by, and then go to the next lane and watch for oncoming traffic, and then get into the center lane where there could be people parked there heading the opposite direction that you're trying to take, and you're trying to negotiate that, and then get over to that next lane, watching for oncoming traffic, and also watching because somebody else might be trying to take a left at that same time. That looks just like a nightmare to me. It would be challenging in low volume, trying to watch everything just from like what I saw on Tuesday, and never mind when, you know, pre-COVID world, I'd head into Boston a lot and take back roads, so a 40-minute trip would take, I have to plan for an hour and a half to get to the LYT station. If I went down Route 20, it was gonna be a 2-hour trip to get to 128. So then, I mean, I'm thinking about that in terms of, okay, who's gonna be living here? So we're looking at 1 bedroom at $1,900. That means that's a person that's gonna be minimum making $68K. You got a 2,400 bedroom, you're gonna need to be making about 86K. So I'm looking at that and thinking, well, our economy's tanking, so what's gonna happen when the people living there say, now I can't afford my rent, and then that two people living in the two-bedroom turns into 4 people living in a two-bedroom? And just some quick calculations for if a quarter of the one-bedrooms added an extra person and half the two-bedrooms added an extra couple of people, you could potentially have 468 people living in this complex. That's a heck of a lot of cars. And even without that math, looking at 376 that's estimated to be there, I find it really hard to believe that only 51 of them have on the morning, and that 68 of them have jobs and are gonna go to work in the morning. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna afford those expensive apartments, but you don't go to work in the morning. Now, I get, there's different hours, but that, to me, means it backs up. So then there's the people that go really early. When I would go into Boston, I would leave at 7 in the morning, because after that, forget it. For every 10 minutes, you added on another 30 minutes in traffic. And the bottom line for me brings it to that, okay, if we add this kind of volume in a project that I'm still not finding any evidence that we need this volume of housing in this location, and we're gonna add all these cars, that's traffic, and I looked, we have to look at public health, especially in this time. So the studies out there on traffic-related air pollution, if we're gonna vote on this, we have to know we are inviting, this is a concentrated, high-volume traffic that, one, the poor people that live there with that beautiful picture and their balconies open, they're 50 feet from Route 20. That's a health hazard. They're gonna be breathing all those fumes. Those poor people aren't even gonna be able to open their doors. And then the complex across the street, that volume's lower because it's at 55 plus, and a lot of those folks are retired. So there's not the normal, in a complex where most people are working, you're not going to have the same volume leaving at peak hours. But these studies really, I think we have to listen to them. There's a Harvard study that says air pollution and traffic congestion in 83 of the nation's largest urban areas contributes to more than 2,200 premature deaths annually, costing the health system at least $18 billion. That's from a Harvard study that goes on more about that. Some specific things in another one from August in 2019 talks about the mixture of vehicle exhaust, secondary pollutants formed in the atmosphere, evaporated emissions from vehicles and non-combustion engines. This exposure to this complex and variable mix of gases and particles has been linked to a range of health effects from adverse birth outcomes to dementia. And it goes on to talk about adverse cardiorespiratory effects, including exacerbation of asthma, incident asthma, reduced lung function, myocardial infarction, progression of arterial sclerosis, and cardiovascular mortality. It's study after study. The Health and Human Services talked about traffic congestion and how it degrades ambient air. There's just study after study out there. So it just comes down to, I'm looking at these numbers, I'm having a hard time seeing how there's a lot of assumptions baked into it. This is going to be a big concentration of people that in Metro West comes with cars, and that was talked about in one of these, it was answered, but some of these factors, some of these models factor in public transportation, which we don't have. So it's gonna be high-volume cars pouring on Route 20, which is already packed when it's in normal working world, which is gonna back up more, and just, do we want to have this health hazard? With thinking along these terms, this is an antiquated way of thinking about housing and community development. So, the bottom line for me is the health impact is very concerning, and I'm not seeing how the costs of this project outweigh the benefits. The benefits outweigh the costs, sorry.
All right,
That's all
are
I
there
have.
other city councilors with comments, questions? Councilor Navin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to be overly repetitive, but I did not speak on this at our last meeting because I wanted to give the applicant a chance to kind of go over the story and then hear some of the transportation issues tonight. But I do want to start by saying Mr. Falk, to you and the team at Waypoint, thank you for the thought that you folks have put into this. It is, as was highlighted at the last meeting, it is certainly a beautiful project. The buildings are very nice looking. The pool looks lovely out in the back, and you know the cartoon folks that are seem to be enjoying themselves as they are recreating across the property. I know you folks have had a lot of work to put into making this size project fit on this property there where you could build, you know, and I think that that shows a lot of hard work. Also, as was highlighted, I do think you should be commended for the environmental benefits on the making it all electric and working towards LEED certification. So I think those are important items that shouldn't be overlooked. As far as the traffic studies that you presented tonight, I want to thank you for that as well. I am glad to see the DOT project moving forward on Route 20. I did drive down to the villages this afternoon off peak hours. And as I was trying to take a left while I was heading east on 20 and looking in my rearview mirror at the Marlborough Fire Department truck cruising towards me, I became very nervous when they just snuck by over to the right. So these improvements are definitely necessary, and I am glad to see them. I'm not sure that they will address the concerns that I have on the project so far, which are a lot of the ones that we have heard tonight just regarding traffic. You know, I take Route 20 east most days, you know, heading to work, and right around the same time, or probably a little bit before the peak. And as that sun comes up and you're heading east on 20 and that traffic slows down, it's the count, but it's the speed and it's the congestion. And when you do have buses on that road, I am very concerned about adding another 1,000 truck trips over the course, car trips, excuse me, over the course of a day. So I do think that that needs to be something we consider. I definitely appreciate the fact that there is an alternative project that could be out there that could lead to a considerable increase, but that is not before us today. So I do think we need to, you know, spend some time thinking about what kind of project will go there, you know, and the density of this project and the traffic impacts. And then also want to just highlight, you know, the left turn is a concern for me as well. Taking a left onto 20, heading west from that side, you know, I'm reminded of the times I try and take a left out of Phelps Street onto 20 West. You know, it is very challenging on a good day. And if you're patient, you can wait, but you're also got a bunch of cars queued up behind you that are also unhappy. And so I understand why people kind of hit the gas as fast as possible and end up, you know, making some poor decisions. So I am concerned about that. But I also do want to highlight, you know, the traffic demand management items that you put on the last slide. They're helpful. They're to be commended. I think that that is important as we kind of move towards a culture that needs to find other ways to commute. I'm not sure how successful they will be, as Councilor Wagner highlighted. You know, for people who need to be able to access certain jobs in certain locations from this area. I think that the bike lanes are great that MassDOT wants to put in. I know Councilor Doucette will probably disagree with me, but I don't know how many people will be riding their bikes to and from work from that location. And, you know, the electric car charging stations, as we move towards an electrification of our transportation sector, I think it's great, and I think it's commendable to have these on site. I am not sure how that will reduce the number of cars. It will certainly have benefits for greenhouse gas emissions and pollution. Come on, I was going.
Are they gone completely?
They all left? They all said, that's enough, Nathan?
They've had enough of you.
Councilor Roby, I'm still here, but cannot hear anything if you can hear me.
We lost audio here in the audience.
Yep, just be patient, folks. We're trying to correct it here in the chamber.
Seems like it might have frozen on the city side.
Yeah, again, I can hear everyone in the panel on virtual. I can hear myself on the TV as well, so transmission is happening.
He's gonna log back in, I believe. Just give him a minute.
That's Wilson explaining. Good evening. Can everyone hear us again?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry
Yes.
for the technical difficulty.
No problem.
Sorry, Councilor Navin.
Are we back?
All right, Counselor Navin,
Yep,
you.
good. I promise I was coming to the end. So just, to complement the charging stations, I think that's very important. But I'm not sure how that will reduce some of the cars on the road, which is an additional concern. With that, again, thank you for coming here tonight and presenting with this information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else in the room with comments? Anybody on the remote? Questions, comments this evening on traffic?
Madam Chair, Council Orem.
Counselor Orem?
Thank you. I'm going to just wrap it up and concur with some of my fellow councilors in respect to Route 20 traffic, as well as I'm very grateful that our engineer for the city has done a thorough review. And as he said, we need for the applicant to convince us any other way that Route 20 is going to be a practical, that there will be practical solutions to resolve this additional traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, Counselor?
Counselor Roby, this is Counselor Perlman.
Counselor Perlman.
Thank you. I also just want to concur with the comments made by my fellow counselors. I too have used to commute to Cambridge before the pandemic, so I was one of those cars that would be driving across Route 20 going eastbound, and it was taking a very long time at any of the lights. So imagine even the fact that adding another light might help people enter and exit from this site. It would also back up a lot of the traffic on Route 20 East. So I am concerned about that continuing with all those cars continuing to go on the road. And then also just wanted to indicate that the Route 20 traffic, even with some of the designs made to Route 20 with the bike lanes and the sidewalks, I am still concerned about the safety of anyone in that area. I feel like every time I drive over there, I see people walking right now, and it is very concerning. And people, if they were trying to cross the street, I also think that would be an issue. So I think that some additional information around the traffic would be useful, especially a larger bandwidth of time. So for example, I know the traffic study was doing the peak hours is 7 to 9 in the morning. When I would leave to go to Cambridge, I would have to leave at 6 a.m. And if I left any later, it would add an extra 30 to 45 minutes on my trip. So I imagine other people, as we said, Metro West is a very commuter area, and so a lot of people would be leaving before 7 a.m. And so I imagine a very large backup. You already have people leaving the site who'd be commuting as they'd be young professionals, and then you would have people commuting regularly as they usually would, and it might cause more people to relocate or have challenges with their own.
Thank you. Counselor Doucette, did you?
So if there could be another study done with a larger time frame for some of those peak hours, I think that would be useful information for the council to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just something that was, I was looking at the map again, the Mass DOT Route 20 proposed site access slide. You didn't have the auxiliary parking. My concern, again, it's a left-hand turn from the auxiliary parking onto Route 20 westbound. My concern is actually how it might interfere with the exclusive left turn on the eastbound side to go into the mall. Was it Marlborough Village, whatever that strip mall is. So I would like to make sure that there is no interference so that someone that's in the auxiliary parking can actually take a left without actually breaking the law. So that's all.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor Ossing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I would just remind the councilors, traffic is an issue, and it's worth us making sure we can address it. But traffic's going to come whether it's a residential unit or a retail unit. So you've got to make sure with the retail unit, we do not have a say in how it's designed. Here we have a say. So just to think that traffic on Route 20 is going to be fine if this doesn't go in is probably not a fair premise, because something will eventually be built there. And I will use my favorite example on Farm Road, where we had a opportunity to put a over 55 development in at the airport, and now, if you like it, it's the industrial place that's not so attractive. But just keep that in mind you know, just to think we solved the world by helping traffic by not putting a project in there that we have some say over versus a project that's gonna potentially, has the potential to come that we have no say over. Traffic will still be coming. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I just want to remind councilors, we did receive from Mr. DePercio a 3-page document that shows Route 20 from the scope from DOT. There are 2 areas where pedestrians will be able to cross with a crossing stop light. I know currently people just cross at will, and it does get to be a little precarious. So there will be one relatively close, at least in my opinion, to this complex to be able to cross the street both ways. And I guess just the comments that were made by Councilor Ossing are probably also on my mind, that something's going to go in there and it will impact the traffic. We have a say whether this does or not. And I believe that probably wraps up the traffic discussion. I know, Mr. Falk, you began this tonight with telling us that you are, I won't say back to the drawing board, but back to thinking about this again. My understanding is you're not ready. I think our plan was we were going to continue this discussion on the 29th and probably begin with some of the overview from managers and get into the actual discussion of the special permit. So I believe you would like us to keep this in committee, and you will let us know when you are ready to come back to us, but it will not be next week. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair. And we've been at the drawing board with this project all along, not back to the drawing board, but continuing to make changes and improvements based upon feedback from the city and from neighbors that we've heard from. We do have some work that we are doing, and we think we'll respond to as many of the councilors' concerns as we can. We won't be ready for that next week. We are suggesting if we could push to Thursday, November 12th, we'd be ready by then, and we would have things submitted, you know, in advance of that meeting for the city to review for constructive conversation at that meeting.
So if there's no objection by the voting members of Urban Affairs, we will postpone discussion on this until November 12th. If for some reason you are not ready, then you can let us know. But for now, expect to take this up in a couple of weeks. We do have other things on our agenda that we can add to for next week and for future meetings. We'll stay busy. Is there any final comments anybody would like to make from the petitioner? If not, I think we can wrap this up.
Well, thank you. We appreciate everyone's attention. Again, as I mentioned early on, you know, Route 20, we know it's busy. It's a well-used roadway. And I know that a commercial or retail project isn't before you, but I think you need to take that into consideration when looking at this project. A similar sized retail project would be triple the traffic in the afternoon peak compared to this project. And I appreciate the committee's time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for now, this is postponed, and our other item we finished work with. So if there's a motion to adjourn from someone, we can.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are adjourned at 8:45.